The year 2034. April. Riyadh in the morning, before the heat has consolidated its position. The towers caught the light first. Always the towers. There were cranes at the northern edge of the city that had not moved in 2 years, but remained lit at night, as if illuminating the idea of progress rather than its practice. The metro's facial payment screens were the colour of pale jade. A woman in a cream abaya walked past a vertical garden while speaking into an earpiece, not looking at it. Nobody looked at gardens anymore. They were understood. The metro ran so quietly under the city that people had stopped talking about it. That is what genuine infrastructure achieves. Eventually, silence. The old desert remained at the edges. It always remained. At night, if you drove the right roads, you could feel it pressing against the outskirts. But the promotional materials had decided not to address that. The yellow season opened officially on the 13th of April. I remember the date because Dr. Archer discharged me from observation that morning. Though discharge is not the word he used. He said I was stable. He said my scans were encouraging. He said the headaches at the base of my skull were not unusual after trauma of my kind, and that my improved focus, my decreased need for sleep, my sudden disciplined ambition, and my intolerance for trivial conversation were not, taken separately, proof of anything pathological. I appreciated the carefulness of that phrase. Taken separately. Doctors are cowards with grammar. His office was on the 31st floor of a medical tower near the financial district. The elevator rose with a barely audible hum. Not mechanical, not the usual compressed air whine, but something lower. I noticed it. I did not pursue it. The waiting room had sand-coloured walls, soft recessed light, water in glass bottles so heavy they seemed intended to shame plastic out of existence. On one wall hung a framed photograph of At-Turayf at dawn. The mud brick walls in the image were golden, almost tender. Behind them, the softened skyline of the new city rose in pale layers. From up there, the city below was a circuit of glass and pale stone. Cars slid between buildings without apparent hurry. People entered and exited lobbies. The yellow season banners ran the length of the cultural pavilion's exterior, not close enough to read properly, just close enough to notice the colour. Gold. Or something that wanted to be called gold. Dr. Archer was not Saudi, though he had been in Riyadh long enough to speak about the city with the irritation of a man who loved it and wished it would stop embarrassing him. He was English or Canadian or something that had learned to sound expensive in international airports. He had the professional sorrow of a man who has listened to other people's grief for 20 years and found, to his dismay, that it has not made him kinder, only more precise. He had a tablet on his knee. He always had a tablet on his knee. I had never seen him write with a pen, which bothered me. A pen would have suited him, would have given his authority an older, more honest shape. "You are sleeping 4 hours a night," he said. "Sometimes 5. He did not look up from the tablet. "And before the accident?" "I slept like a democratic institution, poorly and under constant attack." He did not smile. I had liked him more when he smiled. Through the glass behind him, the KAFD towers caught the morning and fractured it into pale gold. A window-cleaning platform descended on the far building with hydraulic patience. Far below, someone walked across a plaza too quickly for their surroundings. You understand why I'm concerned? Because I'm productive. Because your wife died in front of you. You spent 9 days in a medically induced coma. Since waking, you have described yourself twice as chosen. I said I felt chosen. That distinction comforts you? It should comfort you. It means I'm using metaphor. He set the tablet face down on his knee, not a theatrical gesture, more like a man putting down something he is tired of carrying. Have you accessed the file again? I looked past him. The window cleaning platform had stopped. The man on it was looking out at the city rather than at the glass. What file? He lowered the tablet to the desk. There are men whose disappointment makes you feel guilty. Dr. Archer's disappointment made me want to damage something he owned. I did not like that it made me feel that way. I still do not. Harlan. I watched an early build of a cultural installation that is not, strictly speaking, a file. The installation has a name. Everything has a name if donors are involved. The King in Yellow. He spoke it without irony. The air conditioning ran. Far below, a car turned onto a service road and disappeared between buildings. I felt, as I always did when the title was spoken, a tightening under my ribs, a sudden, precise interior attention, like a hand closing around a small bird. First of all, I didn't seek it out. It was sent to me. By whom? You know I can't say. Can't or won't. Doctor, in the arts, those are the same word with different funding structures. This time he did smile, but only because he was tired. You told me the first act was harmless. It is harmless. And the second? I was silent, because the truth was that I had intended to stop after the first act. Everyone intended to stop after the first act. That was the obscene brilliance of the thing. The first act of The King in Yellow was almost aggressively dull. A formal entertainment, mannered and bloodless. 2 women near a lake, a stranger at a masquerade, some business about a city called Itil, and a prince who would not remove his mask. The dialogue had the weight of bad perfume. It seemed designed to bore away suspicion. I remember closing the window with relief. This was what had upset them? Then the player glitched. Not dramatically, no thunder, no skull in the pixels. The scrub bar trembled under my cursor, and a small notice appeared in the lower right corner. Private instance. Do not share. I should have stopped there. I did stop there. For nearly 12 seconds. Then I clicked. The screen opened, not like a video, but like a door remembering a room. I will not tell you what I saw, not yet. There are images that punish naming by becoming ordinary. I will say only this. The second act knew me. It knew the shape of my grief before I had found words for it. It knew the exact angle from which I had last seen Lena's face, turned toward the shuttle window as the navigation stack made its calm, impossible decision. It knew the colour of the scarf she had bought in Alula and never worn, because she said it made her look like a poet's widow, and then she had laughed. That laugh was in the render, not imitated, not reconstructed, present. It knew that I had loved her and resented her. It knew the particular way I had wanted her to see me clearly, and how I had also spent years arranging myself so she could not. the second act knew that I had survived. It treated this not as mercy, but as evidence. "Harlan," I turned back from the window. "You drifted." "I was admiring the city." "No, you were gone." "I'm here now." He leaned forward. He had decided to be plain with me. I recognized the posture, elbows on knees, hands open. "I'm going to say this simply. I don't think the file caused your symptoms. I think you were in a catastrophic accident. I think your wife died. I think you survived. And I think something that knows how to read grief found you at exactly the right moment. That is not mysticism. It is targeting. That's a sophisticated way to call me crazy. I'm not calling you crazy. I'm saying you're in pain, and the pain has been handed a story, and the story is very good." I did not have an immediate answer for that. I resented him for it. "When they brought you in after the crash, you were repeating a phrase. Do you remember?" "No." "You said, 'no mask,' over and over." I laughed. "That's what this is about? A concussed man says something strange, and now we're in a Gothic paperback?" "You also said, 'the city is behind the city.'" The glass behind him darkened for a moment. Not a cloud. There had been no clouds that morning, only a brief dimming. Only the towers, turning the colour of old bone. Dr. Archer opened a drawer and withdrew a thin envelope. "I printed this because I don't want it forwarded." Now who's being Gothic? "Do not access the private render again. Do not meet with anyone connected to it alone. Do not sign anything regarding the yellow season without counsel. And if you see this mark anywhere—" He opened the envelope. He slid a page across the desk. On it was a shape I had seen before. And never seen before. That is the only way I can explain it. A mark in yellow ink, or gold, or something that made the idea of colour feel provisional. It might have been a crown, or a bent insect, or a letter from an alphabet no one had finished inventing. Simple enough that a child could have drawn it, wrong enough that no child would have. My mouth filled with warmth. "What is it?" He watched me carefully. "You know what it is." "No. I know what it's called." I placed my hand over the page. I did not mean to. My palm covered the sign as if it were something indecent or precious. "Harlan, lift your hand." I smiled at him. "Do you know what I think?" "I want you to lift your hand." "I think the reason you're frightened isn't the sign. It's that something has finally arrived that doesn't need your authority over it." His face went still, not because I had wounded him, because he recognized something in the words. I saw it land and watched him decide not to answer it. I remember the silence after that sentence. The air conditioning ran. The city went on below. Somewhere in the building, an elevator opened and closed. A man who admires his own cruelty has already started losing the argument. I knew that even then. He took the paper back from under my hand. I let him. There was no need to struggle over a copy of what had already entered me. The appointment ended. Documents, recommendations, an offer to extend observation voluntarily, and one final warning in the tone of a man who has decided not to beg, but has come very close. Leave Riyadh. But the season opens today. Exactly. My work is in the exhibition. Your work was removed from the exhibition. I felt my smile remain. It had become somewhat independent of me. That's not true. It is. You're mistaken. I spoke with the foundation. You should not have done that. No, probably not. I left him then. Downstairs the lobby smelled of oud and polished stone. Outside the heat had consolidated. Screens on the buildings carried the usual serene announcements. A group of consultants photographed a coffee robot. Above them, on the cultural pavilion's facade, the yellow season banner ran its full length in gold. I stopped. I stood still on the pavement and looked at it. There was the sign. Not exactly, not obviously. A curve here, a slant there, folded inside respectable design, plausible to anyone who had not looked at it correctly. It rested inside the logo, like a bone inside a throat. I laughed. A security guard glanced at me. "Sir? Beautiful day." He looked up at the sky. "Yes, sir." The Pavilion of Mercy. That was not its official name. Its official name was the Centre for Voluntary Life Closure and Terminal Dignity. But no one called it that except moderators, lawyers, and the kind of journalists who believe precision is the same as courage. The public called them mercy rooms. In London they were grey and discreet. In Toronto they were Scandinavian. In Singapore they looked like airport lounges. In Riyadh, the inaugural pavilion stood within a garden of impossible green. White as a tomb, 6 slim columns, a bronze door polished until it read less as an entrance than as a refusal. There had been arguments. There are always arguments at the birth of difficult things. Panels had been convened. Scholars, physicians, ethicists, clerics, lawyers, grief influencers, and public health futurists had all appeared under studio lighting to explain the distinction between despair and autonomy. The distinction was profitable. That helped. By noon, a crowd had gathered around the garden fence. Not a mob. Riyadh did not do mobs in daylight. A well-dressed, phone-held high civic arrangement. Guards in dark suits stood at intervals. The foundation had placed shade canopies for invited guests. Waiters circulated with water in small glass bottles. It was difficult, standing there with cold water in your hand, to believe you were attending the legalization of surrender. On a raised platform stood ministers, directors, foreign advisors, philanthropists, and medical men. Behind them, the pavilion's bronze door held the crowd's reflection in a warped gold oval. It made every face look briefly royal and dead. The final speaker was a woman from Geneva with silver hair and a voice trained by decades of compassionate bureaucracy. We acknowledge the dignity of those for whom existence has become intolerable through irreversible suffering, mental anguish, or the erosion of personhood. We acknowledge that no society is made kinder by forcing pain to perform gratitude. Today, we open not a door to death, but a door to choice. Applause. Measured, elegant. The applause of people grateful not to be implicated too obviously. A ribbon was cut. The bronze door opened inward. For a moment, I thought I smelled lake water. Not the Gulf, not the hotel fountains, not the mineral breath of irrigation. A colder smell. Black reeds. Wet stone under a sky with no sun one could trust. Then the crowd shifted, and the scent was gone. A young man near the front began crying. He could not have been more than 25. His suit was too large at the shoulders, borrowed perhaps, or bought for an occasion that had not been named. He stepped toward the gate with the stunned, obedient expression of a person who has been waiting for permission to do something terrible to himself. A guard touched his arm. The young man nodded. He looked up at the white building and smiled. The crowd went quiet. The first voluntary guest of the Mercy Pavilion walked under the columns. The bronze door closed behind him. People checked their phones. I left before the official prayer reflection, which was scheduled between the mental health commitment statement and a panel on dignity systems design. I crossed the plaza and entered the metro. The station below KAFD was cool enough to feel moral. White stone, glass barriers, golden directional lines, escalators descending in mirrored pairs. The city's advertisements followed one down: perfume, bank cards, art fairs, wellness retreats, private clinics. The yellow season banners appeared again on the lower concourse walls. A different size from street level, closer now, gold on black. I did not look directly at the central emblem. As the train slid southwest toward Diriyah, my reflection hovered in the darkened window. I looked well, better than before the accident. My beard trimmed with the precision Lena had always asked me to maintain. My eyes were brighter than I remembered. The window flickered as we passed through a tunnel segment still under repair. For half a second, my reflection wore a pale mask. I did not turn away. It was my face. Noura Hawari's workshop occupied a restored building on the edge of the Diriyah Arts District, not far from Jack's, where old warehouses had been given gallery lighting and told to dream. From the street, the place appeared almost modest: mud-coloured walls, a carved wooden door, small, high windows screened in geometric patterns. Inside, it opened into a long hall: conservation benches, textile frames, climate-controlled cabinets, a central work table where pieces of the past lay under lamps. I loved that room. The tap of a chasing hammer, the whisper of silk thread pulled through cloth, the click of ceramic fragments aligned. In a city that had built its identity on completion, Noura's workshop preserved the dignity of incompletion. Broken things were not rebranded here. They were studied, cleaned, and asked what kind of wholeness they could bear. When I entered, Noura was working on a ceremonial breastplate loaned for the yellow season's historical prelude. The piece lay open before her on the work table, dark and scaled, with silver fittings and green oxidation at the seams. Under the lamp, each plate caught the light with a small, disciplined fire. She was using a chasing hammer, a tool for the finest correction, for adjusting metal by increments so small the change registers only later, in aggregate. She held it the way a person holds something they have held for a very long time. Ting, ting, ting. Constance sat near the far window, embroidering the exhibition banner. Her hair was pinned back impatiently. She had gold thread wound around 2 fingers. The banner lay across the frame before her, deep blue-black silk, gold thread radiating from the central emblem. She had set the needle down on the table, not paused, set down. Her hands were in her lap, and she was looking at the emblem with the specific stillness of someone who has been looking at something for a while and has not decided what to call what they see. Then she picked up the thread, not the needle, just the thread. She wound it once around her finger, then once more, and set it down again on the other side of the frame, away from the emblem. A small repositioning, the gesture of a woman who has decided to approach the thing from a different direction, without quite saying so aloud. When she looked up and saw me, disappointment passed over her face before courtesy could bury it. "You expected Louis," she blushed, which I found old-fashioned and therefore moving. "I expected no one." "Then you have the soul of a curator." Noura did not look up. "Do not bother my daughter, Harlan. I came to admire your work." "You came to avoid someone." "That too." "Dr. Archer?" "He discharged me." "Against advice?" "Medicine is a conversation." "So is bankruptcy." Constance laughed before she could stop herself. I bowed toward her. "Thank you." She bent back over the banner, smiling despite herself. But she picked up the needle from a different angle than before, working from the outer edge of the design now, moving away from the centre. I noticed. I did not say so. The cloth was extraordinary. A field of deep blue-black silk, almost night-coloured, with gold thread radiating from a central emblem designed by the Foundation's branding team. To most eyes, it was a stylized sun over old walls, the perfect marriage of heritage and ambition. To mine, the curves had already begun to confess. There it was, hidden by taste, hidden almost completely. "How much are they paying you to sew that?" "Enough." "Have you looked closely at the central emblem?" Constance's needle stopped. "It's a design." "Yes." "From the Foundation?" "Yes." She looked at it, then at me, then down. "What are you doing?" "Nothing." "You are bringing outside things in." "Doesn't everyone?" She stood. She moved to the work table, placing herself between me and the armour with the ease of someone who has not decided to do it consciously and therefore cannot be questioned about the choice. "What do you want?" "I came to see Wilde." "He is not here." "He's upstairs." "This is my building." "And you have been very generous with it." She looked at me with patience and something else, not concern, not sympathy, but the clean assessment of someone who has already reached a conclusion and is watching to see if the evidence will trouble her. The way she looked at damaged objects before she decided whether repair was possible. She had been looking at me that way since I arrived. I had told myself it was affection. It was not affection. "Harlan, you do not seem well." "I am considerably better than I was." "I know. That is what worries me." Noura was in her late 40s, perhaps early 50s, with grey beginning at her temples and hands that carried the small evidence of her work. A chemical burn, very old, at the base of her left thumb. Calluses at the fingertips from tools, from thread, from the particular grip of patient correction. Her late husband had been an architect who died before his district was finished. An entire street of his plans still stood unbuilt at the southern edge of Diriyah, framed drawings in a municipal archive waiting for a budget revision that had not come and probably would not. She did not speak of it, but I had noticed that the objects she chose to restore were often things that other people had abandoned before completion. She returned them to a state of readiness. Not nostalgia, readiness. "Have you seen Mr. Wilde today? That man is not welcome here." "Walid is welcome nowhere. That is why he knows everyone." "He knows what people tell cowards. He knows what people hide from themselves. He sells filth back to the frightened. He knows the cost of things. That is not the same as selling them. It is exactly the same." She looked at me then with something like grief. I resented it. I had not earned it, or so I told myself. I am less certain of that now. "He has been filling your head." My head was never empty. No, only injured. The word was different from the others, not chosen, not sharpened. Injured. Noura did not use language like a weapon. She used it like the hammer, measured strikes, each one placed. I heard the shuttle. Not as memory. I do not actually remember the impact. Memory fabricates continuity to protect its authority. What I remember is Lena's hand on the window, the navigation display calmly rerouting, a truck in the service lane, and Lena saying my name, not loudly, not exactly in fear, but in the tone she used when she wanted me to stop being clever and attend to the world. Then the second act filled in what memory withheld. No, I do not remember that. I saw it. There is a difference. And it is still there, not behind me, present in the way a room stays changed after something has been moved in it. You simply know the room differently now. Harlan? The gold thread had slipped from her fingers. It lay across the emblem in a loose arc, gold on gold. I realized I had placed both hands on the work table. Noura had not moved from her position between me and the armour. I'm fine. I know you're fine. Sit down anyway. I straightened instead. I'm going upstairs. Harlan, whatever he has told you, whatever he is telling you it means, it is not what he says. How would you know what he's said? Because I know what he does with people who have been hurt. She said it without drama, just a plain sentence, the kind that lands differently because it has not been dressed up. He's upstairs. The back staircase was narrow and undecorated, hidden behind a storage partition where rolled textiles stood in acid-free sleeves. I had climbed it often. At the top was a locked door, painted the same colour as the wall. I knocked twice, waited, then knocked 3 times more. From inside came a high, amused voice. "Go away, unless you have brought either money or humiliation." It's Harlan. "Ah, then you have brought both." The lock clicked. Walid al-Walid had once been beautiful. This was not obvious now, which made it more important. He opened the door with his left hand, or what remained of it, 2 fingers and a thumb, all of them strong, overdeveloped, almost theatrical in their competence. His right hand was perfect and manicured, heavy with a signet ring. His body was small, twisted by an old injury or illness no one described the same way twice. His shoulders were too broad for his narrow chest. His head seemed slightly too large and slightly too clever for the body assigned to carry it. He wore a linen thobe of such exact whiteness it felt aggressive. Over it he had thrown a dark silk robe embroidered with yellow thread. His ears were artificial, not discreet prosthetics, that would have bored him. They were sculpted from some pale material with a faint blush at the edges, held by nearly invisible silver wires that vanished into his hair. Too perfect, too delicate. The ears of a saint in a museum case. Today the left one sat slightly crooked. "You've been fighting the cat." "She lacks reverence." A white cat watched me from the top of a filing cabinet with the yellow eyes of an unpaid assassin. "She has taste." "She has appetite. People mistake the two because appetite is more flattering." He double-locked the door and slid a steel bar into brackets. The room beyond was larger than the building's exterior suggested. Servers hummed behind carved wooden screens. Old filing cabinets stood beside biometric safes. Paper ledgers lay open under lamps. The walls were covered in photographs, clippings, screenshots, invitations, family trees, seating charts, police reports, court filings, donor lists, art fair passes, and printouts of social posts, deleted too late to matter. At first glance it was chaos. At second glance it was a city. And below all of it, arriving through the floor in steady intervals, ting, ting, ting. Dr. Archer has released me. Doctors do not release, they abandon. He warned me about the sign. Did he show it to you? A version. There are no versions. He thinks you're dangerous. I am useful. The useless call that danger. He climbed with surprising agility into the high leather chair. The cat rose and began to creep toward him across the top of the cabinet. He watched her with obvious delight. Don't. Never deprive a creature of the pleasure of becoming what it is. The cat sprang. For several seconds they were a single shrieking mechanism. Silk, claws, white fur, yellow thread, Wilde's laughter rising like something boiling. He caught the animal behind the shoulders, pressed his face to hers, and whispered in Arabic too softly for me to hear. The cat went rigid, then limp. He released her. She fled under a table, offended but intact. Wilde's artificial ear had come loose and hung from its wire. "Help me." I crossed the room and adjusted it. His skin beneath the wire was warm and hairless, scarred in little crescent ridges. He smelled of attar, old paper, and antiseptic. You enjoy that too much. I enjoy honesty. Cruelty is simply honesty without stage management. He opened a ledger. Below, Noura's hammer continued its patient work. Ting, ting. I came for advice. You came for confirmation. Advice is what people request when they want a witness to their disobedience. He ran the knuckle of his damaged hand down a column of names. Faisal N., wellness founder. Reputation damaged by voice note, Istanbul. Repaired through counter leak and donor dinner. Retainer, 70,000. He turned a page. Marianne Voss, curator, Berlin and Riyadh. Reputation damaged by provenance inquiry. Repaired through scholar relocation and acquisition narrative. Retainer, 120,000. Another page. P. Green Dusenberry. No, forgive me, wrong century. I keep jokes for myself. You blackmail people. I repair reputations. That's blackmail with upholstery. Everything civilized is something barbaric with upholstery. I sat opposite him. On the wall behind his chair was a map of Riyadh covered in yellow pins. KAFD, Diriyah, Embassy Quarter, private clinics, galleries, hotels, metro stations, compounds beyond the city, farms in the desert. An unmarked point west of the old road. Lines connected the pins with the care of something that had grown rather than been designed. How many people work for you? 500 if one includes cowards. One usually must. Moderators, drivers, assistants, hotel staff, archivists, security consultants, failed journalists, one poet. Never trust poets, but always employ one. They notice insults before facts. You told me Archer had my work removed. I told you he would try. He said he spoke to the foundation, and I spoke to their shame. He opened a drawer and withdrew a tablet. He turned it toward me. There, in the exhibition schedule, under the section titled Memory, Mask, Future, was my name. Harlan Castaigne, Second Act Study, Private Rendering Environments and Bereavement Interfaces. I felt an almost embarrassing gratitude. How? They did not remove you. They misplaced courage. I returned it. What did it cost? Someone else. I waited. You are becoming sentimental. I did not ask him to elaborate. The ledger was still open on the desk. On a side table lay a roll of heavy paper bound with yellow cord. What is that? Your genealogy. My what? Not blood. Blood is peasant metaphysics. Your line of access, patronage, injury, witness, survival. The crown has never passed through families, whatever fools have written. It passes through those who see and are not destroyed quickly enough. The crown? You know what I mean. I did. I wish to God I did not. He unrolled the paper. Names branched across it in black and gold ink. Artists, dead patrons, translators, suicides, collectors, critics, a French actress, a Cairo bookseller, a London coroner, a woman from Atlanta whose online archive of fatal accident footage had vanished after her arrest, a Saudi prince dead before 40, 3 anonymous accounts represented only by handles, and near the bottom, Lena. My hand moved before thought. Don't touch. I stopped. Lena's name was written in blue. Below us, Noura's hammer worked steadily in the silence. Ting, ting, ting. Why is she there? Because the second act used her to open you. I stood so quickly the chair struck the floor behind me. Wilde did not flinch. Choose your next movement carefully. You knew. I suspected. You sent me the file. No. But you knew it would know her. I knew it would know something. It always knows something. What is it? He sighed. You still think things are what they are made of. Code, footage, language model, theatre, ritual, archive. All those answers are correct and therefore useless. He lowered himself from the chair and crossed to the wall map. His crooked ear trembled on its wire. The first act is banal, intentionally, a costume, a mask that says, "See, I am only a relic." The second act is not performed. It performs you. Some people see ambition. Some see the one they betrayed. Some see nothing and are therefore safe, pitiable creatures. But a few. He touched Lena's name with the tip of his damaged hand. A few are recognized. My throat hurt. By whom? Do not be provincial. The cat had emerged again and sat between us, tail curling around her feet. Wilde returned to his chair. He lifted the yellow-bound genealogy and set it on his knee. There are 3 people who stand between you and your proper form. Dr. Archer, because he would medicalize revelation. Louis, because he would domesticate it. And Noura Hawari, because she still believes broken things should be repaired rather than used. And Constance? Constance should be spared, if possible. Why? Because she still blushes. From below came the faint ting of Noura's hammer against metal. Ting, ting, ting. The sound moved through the floor and arrived somewhere in the centre of me, in the place where the second act had installed itself, like a room inside a room. And something in that room recognized the sound and was patient. Tell me what to do. No, my king. Tell me what you have already decided. I did not kill Dr. Archer that night. People will say otherwise. I did visit him, that much is true. His apartment was in a serviced tower near the diplomatic quarter, quiet, expensive, decorated with the kind of restraint that suggests taste or professional fear of seeming alive. He answered the door in shirt sleeves, holding a glass of water. Not whiskey, I remember noticing. Harlan, you made calls about my work. He looked past me into the hall. Are you alone? That depends on your theology. He stepped aside. Come in. I entered because I had expected resistance and disliked being denied the pleasure of overcoming it. His living room overlooked a dark garden where paths glowed between palms. On one wall hung a small painting of a winter sea. No people, no boats, grey water going on until it met a grey sky. It moved me, which I resented. This was not a room I had wanted to be moved in. Do you like it? No. It belonged to my mother. Then I like it less. He nodded, as if this confirmed something. He set down his glass. He sat. He did not invite me to sit, which meant he was frightened. Frightened people either talk too much or become very deliberate about furniture. You're angry. I'm bored by the word angry. Then let me be plain. You are grieving and calling it revelation. You survived something unbearable, and your mind is trying to make survival meaningful. That is not mystical. It is human. I wanted to strike him then, not because he was wrong. What I could not forgive was that he had placed his finger on the bruise at the centre of me with clinical neatness, and that his finger would leave a mark. You think meaning is a symptom because you have none. I think meaning can become predatory. Who is Wilde to you? A friend. He is using you. He knows the cost of things. He has a history. So do you. His eyes sharpened. I should not have enjoyed that. I began to speak. He let me. That was his mistake, or his mercy. I am still not certain which. As I recited the architecture of his discretion, Dr. Archer's face did not collapse. He was stronger than I had hoped, but colour left him slowly, the way warmth leaves a room when a window has been left open somewhere else in the house. The painting, the glass on the table, the bowl of dates no one had touched. Ordinary things becoming witnesses. When I finished, he said, "Wilde gave you that. You gave it to him by doing it." I did some of those things, not all as described, but enough. The admission struck me done. He looked very tired, not ashamed, past ashamed, the way a person looks when they have been carrying something for a long time and have simply stopped pretending it is light. There was no defence in him, and because there was no defence, there could be no triumph. I had come to expose a hypocrite, and found a sinner. Sinners are harder. They have already done the ruining. I'm not your enemy. Then renounce your claim. What claim? To me. Harlan, no, say it. Say I am not your patient. Say you have no authority over me. Say what you saw in my scans was not injury. He took a step toward me, careful. He stopped. He looked at me for a moment, not with fear exactly, but with the expression of a man who has just understood something he will not be able to un-understand. Whatever you saw in that render, whatever it showed you, it is not a crown. It is an open wound. And someone has convinced you those are the same thing. He was not performing that sentence. That was the worst of it. The room had grown very cold. In the balcony glass behind him, the garden lights had changed. They no longer marked paths among palms. They trembled like lanterns on black water. Dr. Archer turned, saw only his reflection, and turned back. For a moment his face wore the pale mask. No, not wore, lacked. His features seemed to loosen from the idea of him, as if face were an agreement now under review. I understood then a line from the first act that had seemed silly when Camilla whispered it to Casilda. No mask? No mask. Get out. I left him. He was alive when I left. By morning, the story had arranged itself otherwise. A brief item circulated first in private messages, then in the grey channels between public grief and gossip. Prominent neurologist found dead, fall from balcony, no suspicious circumstances, history of stress, family requests privacy. The clinic issued a statement by noon. The foundation removed him from its advisory page by 1. By 2, someone had posted an old conference video of him speaking on traumatic grief. The comments filled with hearts. By 3, his face had become content. I watched the video. Then again. It was a conference recording, handheld, slightly overexposed. Dr. Archer at a lectern in a beige room, speaking about loss and the ethics of meaning-making after catastrophic injury. His voice was measured, professional, exactly as I had known it. I watched it a third time. There was a moment, perhaps 2 minutes in, where he paused mid-sentence. A pause I had assumed was for emphasis, for rhetorical breath. But in the third viewing, I noticed that his eyes during that pause moved to something off-camera. Not to a colleague, not to notes, to something low and to the left and out of frame. He did not look afraid. He looked like a man who has heard his name called from a room he believed was empty. I closed the laptop. I went to the bathroom. The tap ran warm, then hot. I held my hands under it for a moment, then dried them on the towel. Through the window, the city was already bright, towers rising into a pale sky, the metro's jade-coloured screens visible at street level, the yellow season banners along the cultural boulevard catching the light from the east. I went to meet Louis. I had not planned what I would say to Louis. That is not entirely true. I had planned a great deal of what I would say to Louis, but between the planning and the saying, there was a space that kept expanding, and in that space, Wilde's voice had taken up residence. Not his words, his patience. Louis Castaigne was my cousin by the thinner branch, a connection more administrative than felt, maintained through the occasional family obligation and the shared inconvenience of a surname that carried expectations neither of us had chosen. He was 4 years younger than me. He had studied architecture, then moved into cultural programming and events. He was good at it, in the way that people are good at things that do not require them to be difficult. He had a clean apartment in a building with a reliable elevator. He kept reasonable hours. His friends liked him without reservation. He was, as far as I had ever been able to determine, not especially interesting, and not especially cruel, which, in my experience, is an achievement more people claim than possess. He was with Constance. This I had known for some time. This was, Wilde had suggested, among the things that needed addressing. I found him near the banner installation along the southern wall of the exhibition ground. The yellow season had opened 3 days prior, and the crowds had thinned to the genuinely curious. Workers in yellow vests moved at intervals. The banners ran the full length of the wall, 6 panels, deep blue-black silk, gold thread, the central emblem large enough now to read clearly from 20 metres. Louis was standing with his back to the banner, reading something on his phone. He looked up when he heard me. Harlan. Hello, Louis. He looked well. He had always looked well, in the unremarkable way that untroubled people do, as if the body, given nothing serious to process, simply runs clean. I heard you were at the opening. I didn't see you. I was attending to something. Right. Constance said you came by the workshop. I did. She said... He stopped. What did she say? She said you seemed tired. I noticed the substitution. Whatever Constance had actually said, Louis had translated it into something I could be offered without difficulty. He was considerate that way. It was one of the things about him that I found very difficult to respect. We walked a short distance along the wall. The banner moved in the afternoon wind. The central emblem shifted with the silk, the curves advancing and receding as the cloth breathed. I watched it without turning my head. There's something I need to ask you. All right. I need you to consider stepping back from Constance. From what? From your involvement with her, from your claim. I don't have a claim on Constance. You have an assumption. I have a relationship. That is a form of claim. Harlan, what is this about? I looked at the banner. The emblem folded in the wind, gold on gold, and for a moment the curves aligned into something I knew. Do you see it? See what? I turned toward him. In the emblem. Look at it carefully. He looked. Genuinely looked. He was not the kind of man to refuse even a strange request without making an effort. His eyes moved across the design, his head tilted slightly. Then he straightened. It's a logo. Heritage branding. I worked with the team on the spacing in the third panel. Nothing else. Nothing else. I had known he would say that. What I felt was not contempt exactly, something colder and more private, the feeling of a man who has been shown something real and finds himself alone in having seen it. I withdrew my phone. I opened the exhibition pass that Wilde had arranged. At the bottom of the digital page, small, nearly decorative, the mark. I held it toward him. It's a QR code. Look at the shape. It's a broken QR code. The border is corrupted. Or it's a design choice. Half the branding this year looks deliberately glitched. He handed the phone back to me. He was holding his own hands carefully, I noticed, the way people do when they want to seem relaxed and have consciously reminded themselves to seem relaxed. Constance's work on the banner is extraordinary. Yes. She's been approaching the central emblem from the edges. Yes, she mentioned she was revising the technique. She knows. Knows what? That she is making something significant. That it requires care. That not everyone who wants to be near it should be. Louis looked at me for several seconds. Not with hostility. That would have been easier to meet. With a kind of careful, deliberate kindness. The expression of a man who has decided something and is now working out how to say it without damage. Harlan, I know this year has been... I know what happened with Lena, and I'm sorry. I've always been sorry. I've said that, and I meant it. You needn't. I do, though. But I'm worried about you. Not because of Constance, not because of any claim. Because you don't seem right, and I think you should talk to someone. I have spoken to someone. I know about Archer. He stopped. His voice shifted, something careful removed from it. What remained was plainer. There are things being said, Harlan, about the exhibition, about you, about the file that's been circulating. What things? That it's dangerous. That people who've accessed it that some of them have hurt themselves, or others. I don't know what's true, but I'm asking you, as family, step back from it. Whatever Wilde has told you it means. Step back. The banner moved behind him in the wind. The gold thread caught the low sun and scattered it across the stone in a trembling net. I watched it. The emblem folded toward me and unfolded, and I saw, in the angle of the fold, the sign complete, not suggested, not hidden, but plain and open and mine. Mine. I don't need you to understand it, Louis. I need you to renounce it. Renounce your name, your right to judge what I have seen, Your assumption that what I am becoming is a symptom and not an arrival. I'm not going to do that. Then we have nothing more to discuss. I turned and walked back across the plaza. I did not look at the banner again. I did not need to. The image was in me now, with the permanence of things that have been recognized rather than learned. I was aware of Louis standing behind me, not moving, not calling after me, simply standing. I had expected him to argue, or to follow, or to do any of the things that people do when they have not yet accepted the end of a conversation. His stillness felt, at the time, like concession, like a man who has understood he has been bested and is gathering what remains of his dignity. This is what I believed as I crossed the plaza. I believed it because I needed to. I did not look back. I should have looked back. In the hotel lobby that evening, I received a message from the exhibition's digital access system. I had not requested any message from the exhibition's digital access system. The subject line read, "Render update, exclusive presentation." I opened it. The body of the message was 3 lines. The first line was the date and time of a private presentation at an undisclosed location within the exhibition grounds. The second line was a location code I did not recognize. The third line was the salutation, "Your Majesty." I put the phone face down on the table. The lobby was full of evening noise, the particular murmur of a hotel at the end of a cultural day, well-dressed people with lanyards exhausting the last of their professional warmth, glasses, soft music, laughter from the bar. I sat with my hands flat on my knees. Outside, the city was gold in the last of the light. The yellow season banners ran the length of the boulevard. Someone walked past the window with a child on their shoulders, the child reaching for the banners as if for fruit. I thought of Louis standing still in the plaza. I thought of Constance approaching the emblem from the edges, working away from the centre, not quite able to say why. I thought of Noura between me and the armour, that careful, wordless positioning. I thought of Dr. Archer at his window, his features loosening from the idea of him. I thought of Lena's name in blue on the genealogy roll, her name in ink the colour of water. I thought of the laugh in the render, not imitated, present. I picked up the phone. I opened the message again. The salutation was still there. "Your Majesty." I noted, and this seems important now, though I did not flag it then, that the message was addressed not to Harlan Castaigne. It was addressed to a name I had given no one, a name that had not passed between Louis and me in any version of our conversation I could account for. Not Harlan. My name. The one no one had the right to know. I accepted the invitation. Behind the hotel window, the last of the light left the towers. The city went on shining.